Now that my name is on, it's time to add some decoration, make it look a little prettier. I'm going to go ahead and open up my library again. And there's really a ton of things you could do here. I'll just show you some of the basics of what I typically run through with students. So one thing is, your name looks okay this way. I would most definitely shrink it down a little bit though. So I'm going to push my name in and also make it a little shorter this direction too. I still want to be able to read it, so I have to kind of determine what size works best for that, and I think this will probably be fine. So there's a few things that are pretty handy. I'm going to make a pattern, so a lot of times I will tell students if they want to, we'll take some pyramids here and probably some stars, but it's really whatever you want it to do. So this is where your sizing tools come in pretty handy though. So I'm going to pick up a pyramid and stick it on just a blank spot on my work plane. Because my work plane's still elevated, it's going to be on top of my name tag when I resize it. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to size 3 wide and 3 deep. So I'm just pressing enter on those. The one problem, it does look kind of silly. This pyramid is really tall, so I have to remember that this is my height adjustment, and it's still 20. I'm going to shrink that back down to 2. And then now it looks like a very small pyramid here. So I'm going to click that once. If you have trouble clicking and dragging, this is where I use the arrow keys a lot. So I'm just going to hold the up arrow to slide it up, and then I'm going to use my left and right buttons to slide it around a little bit. And I'm going to reset my home view just to kind of see what it looks like. I'll zoom back in, and again, if you need to slide it over, shift and right click or shift and 2-finger click does let you have some more control over where that goes. And there is my little pyramid here on that side. So here's something that's kind of fun, is I'm going to click this pyramid, and we have this option up here to duplicate or use Control D. So I'm going to go ahead and do Control D or duplicate, and it doesn't look like anything happened other than my screen clicked for just a minute. So I'm going to use my right key to slide off my copy. So I made 2 identical copies. They're still stacked inside of each other. So I will nudge this to the right. And because I nudged it, if I continued to duplicate, TinkerCAD picks up my pattern. So instead of making an exact copy where it is right now, if I duplicate it, it knows I made a pyramid of that size and slid it over a little bit. And so I can continue doing that all across my name tag, which is pretty cool actually that it does that for us. You can see those pyramids are there too now. So I'm going to hold down Shift and right click to move over a little bit more, and I'm going to keep duplicating all the way to the end of my name tag. And again, if I run out of room, just Shift and right click or 2-finger click, and I'll keep doing that until I get down to the end. So that one looks pretty good right there. I got pretty lucky. So I now have a bunch of pyramids here. It looks like I could resize my name, so I'm going to click that. Use these little black boxes to kind of slide it down. I like that. I might even shrink it a little bit this way. So I now have the basics of what I want. Again, making sure these are the right size. So just to show you a couple more things that you could do, any of these would be fine to use. But I'm going to use something that's pretty fun in the shape generators. So I'm going to click on my library and open up my shape generators where it says all. Takes a few seconds to load, but my very first one is US states. And there's a lot of different things in here. There's stairs, I don't even know how to pronounce that, but there's lots of things you can click through. There's multiple pages. There is a ton of stuff here that you can use. So talk bubbles, the students can spend hours going through the whole thing. But for this purpose, I'm going to use US states. So I'm going to click my US state to pick it up. I will come out here and drag it and drop it on my name tag. I'm going to click it to drop it. It's obviously way too big, which is completely fine, but my height is already 2, which is kind of nice. So the next thing I will do is I'm going to resize it. And actually, before we do that, I will pick my state. Since we live in Nebraska, I will click and scroll down and find Nebraska here. Nebraska fits a little better than some states do on here. And then the tricky part about doing all this is resizing it. And there's a few options you can do. One is you can hold down Shift as you resize, and you click a corner and it keeps things in correct proportion. So I'm going to go ahead and nudge with my arrow keys first, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and click on a corner, and it will allow me to adjust the height and the width and the depth all at the same time. So all 3 dimensions are changing right now because I held down Shift. So that looks about right. I'll use my right arrow key to nudge it some more. And then the one thing that I do want to do is double check my height. So right now I'm at 1.55. I'll just click in there and type in 2. Press enter. and now we're back up to 2 millimeters. Okay, so there is the state of Nebraska. There is my pattern at the bottom, and I could kind of add some more of these things if I want to do that. But I'm going to go back to basic shapes, and I'm now going to find, let's go with a heart. So I'm going to click that heart to pick it up, and I'm going to drop it right on top of Nebraska. And it's going to be way too big, and that's completely okay. But I am going to change my size. I'm guessing this is probably going to be somewhere around 3, and give that a second, and 3 again at the bottom. Okay, so now I have this very tall, skinny tube heart. You can see it's just a brown, very tall, skinny heart, and I don't want it to be that tall, but that's okay because for what we're doing, it really won't matter. So I'm going to click this again, and this is where I can actually change this into a hole, which is kind of nice. You can also just press the letter H, and that will turn it into a hole as well. And then to turn it back into solid, you just press the S to turn it back into a solid. So I want it to be a hole. I'm going to click on the hole. I'm going to use my arrow keys to nudge it over. And it looks like I could go quite a bit bigger than this. So I'm actually going to change my size. I'm going to click this little box at the bottom, and maybe let's try 6 and give it a second. We'll go click the next box and change that one to 6 as well. That looks a little bit better. And just like I did my cylinder for the hole, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, and I can see that there's my cone. It has turned red, and I'm going to grab that and push it down. And so for mine, I know I need to probably be somewhere around -6 to anywhere from -10. If I go too far, it just disappears and it's gone all the way through. So I want to be able to at least see a little bit of it on this side. And I will grab my cube and rotate, and I can see that it has pushed through the bottom and it's sticking through the top now. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And if I want to group these, I need to draw a box that covers my heart, Nebraska, and part of the pink at the back. And there's a bunch of other ways you can do this too. You could click the heart, hold down shift, click Nebraska, keep holding down shift and click the back of your name tag, and then I can group these together. And that'll take Nebraska, the name tag base, and my heart, and go ahead and group them together to make one solid object. If I want to keep them separate, I can also do solid and multicolor, and that will switch my Nebraska back to red and my name tag base back to pink. But the hole has gone all the way through now. I can clearly see that I have that opening through there. So when my name tag prints, that'll just be a negative space in the middle right there. So again, there's a lot of things you can do with this. You could round both ends. You can continue adding more things. You can use any of these tools. There are a few things I want to show you in another video that kind of talk about what not to do, just from experience as far as what works and what doesn't work. But at this point, if this was one of my students' name tags or mine, I would consider this pretty complete. I might suggest they stretch their name out a little bit more, and then possibly even stretch their name a little bit taller on here. So they have to kind of figure out what looks good, what they think is going to work the best, but I'm pretty happy with that, and I would gladly print this right here. So at this point, we are done. The name tag base would be complete. So we'll do another video talking about how to export it, how to share it, but for now, we are pretty good here, and I don't see any mistakes.